Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to explore a really brilliant framework, and honestly, it's one that will completely change how you think about sharing information, designing courses, or really just teaching diverse groups of people. I mean, whether you're an educator, a corporate trainer, or just someone who constantly has to explain complex ideas to a team, we've all hit that wall, right? That wall where your message just doesn't seem to reach everyone in the room. You put in all this work, you present the material, and yet some folks just look entirely lost, while others are completely checked out. So today, we're exploring a fascinating concept from our source material called Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, and we're going to break it down through an incredibly fun, totally relatable lens. So let's get into it.
So I want you to imagine you are hosting a lime. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, a lime is a Caribbean expression. It basically means a relaxed gathering, just a really good party at your home. It's all about good vibes, great company, and of course, amazing food. So you invite 10 of your closest friends over for this lime. But to make things interesting, each of your 10 friends decides to bring along someone you have never met before, a complete stranger. Suddenly, you've got a house full of 20 people. And as the host, you know that mild panic starts to set in as you try to figure out how on earth you're going to satisfy 20 completely different appetites.
Just think about the sheer chaos of preferences you'd encounter the second you start planning that menu. You are instantly facing an absolute matrix of needs. You've got some guests who absolutely love palau. Then there are the huge fans of curry chicken and roti. But wait, someone is a strict vegetarian and they would much rather have kalaloo and provisions. Another guest explicitly tells you they cannot handle spicy food at all. Someone else has a severe food allergy you have to navigate safely. And, because it's a lime, there's inevitably going to be that one guest knocking on your kitchen door asking if you've got any doubles hidden away. It is literally a matrix of strict requirements and tastes.
So faced with this hungry, diverse crowd, you really have to ask yourself a super practical question. Would it make any logical sense whatsoever to prepare one single massive pot of palau, plop it right in the center of the table, and just expect every single guest to be happy and well-fed? Imagine actually doing that. The vegetarian is eating nothing. The person with the allergy is totally stressed out. The spice-averse guest is just chugging water all night. It would be a complete hosting disaster.
Obviously, you'd abandon that one-pot approach. Giving everyone the exact same meal regardless of their needs guarantees failure for a huge chunk of your guests. Instead, instinctively, you'd move to the buffet approach. You lay out a variety of food options. By offering different dishes, sides, and spice levels, you empower everyone to walk up to that table and build a plate that perfectly works for their unique preferences, their dietary restrictions, and their personal tastes. Everyone eats. Everyone's happy. It's a win.
Section 1. From the kitchen to the classroom. When we look at this whole hosting analogy, traditional one-size-fits-all teaching is exactly like that single pot of food. Think about the classic lecture hall model we have all sat through. The instructor stands at the front, delivers content in exactly one way, usually just talking at you for an hour, expects all learners to engage in that exact same way, and provides only one rigid pathway to success, which is usually a standardized written test. It assumes everyone processes information at the exact same speed, with the exact same background knowledge, and the exact same attention span. And just like those guests forced to eat a dish they're allergic to, many learners end up frustrated, completely alienated, and unsuccessful.
Well, this is exactly where Universal Design for Learning comes into play. It's a framework that completely flips that old dynamic on its head. Katie Novak actually expertly explores this in her February 2024 YouTube crash course on UDL. She highlights that rather than assuming all learners need the exact same thing, UDL starts with a foundational, almost simple recognition. Learners are just fundamentally different. They arrive with different experiences, different strengths, varying challenges, and entirely unique motivations.
Section 2. The Educational Buffet in Action.
So how do we actually apply this awesome host mentality to a really rigorous environment, like, say, a nursing program? Well, consider the typical learner profiles. In nursing or truly any modern learning environment, your learners are not blank slates. They're shift workers coming off a grueling 12-hour rotation. They're parents trying to balance childcare. They're mature students returning to study after a decade away. Because of these incredibly complex profiles, they absolutely need different options. When we offer just one way to learn, we unintentionally build walls for people whose lives just don't fit that rigid mold. Sure, some of these learners will absolutely excel by locking themselves in a quiet room and reading a dense textbook. But others? They might need visual demonstrations. A completely exhausted shift worker might benefit massively from short, punchy videos they can watch on their commute. Others might need the tactile, hands-on experience of physical simulations, or the collaborative energy of group discussions. By providing these multiple options, you ensure the content is actually accessible to the reality of their lives. You are essentially giving them the educational buffet they need to absorb the material and truly thrive.
Section 3. Busting the big myth. Okay, I know what some of you might be thinking right now. Looking at all those options, you might be starting to sweat a little bit. So we really need to clear up the biggest misconception about universal design for learning. Providing all these options absolutely does not mean lowering the bar. UDL is not about making things easier so that everybody just gets a passing grade. And it definitely doesn't mean you have to exhaust yourself creating 20 completely separate, customized lessons for every single learner in your room. Honestly, that would be completely unsustainable for any educator, trainer, or manager. The goal here isn't to remove the challenge of the material. The goal is to remove the unnecessary barriers to overcoming that challenge.
Instead, think of UDL as simply a method of structuring your environment. Step 1 is designing the learning experience from the ground up, with multiple, flexible pathways built right in, setting out the buffet. But step 2 is the absolute most vital part. You keep the exact same high learning outcomes for everyone. The destination remains identical. It is rigorous, it is demanding, and it is standardized. Every single learner still has to prove they understand the material to the exact same degree. We are simply giving them a choice in the vehicle they use to arrive at that destination. So whether they take the scenic route of a group project or the direct highway of a traditional written exam, they all end up crossing the exact same finish line.
When you really put it side by side, the parallel is pretty much perfect. A well-planned lime offers enough choices for every guest to find something delicious and leave the party feeling happy and satisfied. A well-designed explainer, presentation, or learning experience operates on the exact same logic. It provides built-in options and flexibility so that every single person, regardless of their background or their personal learning style, can deeply engage with the material, participate fully, and ultimately succeed in mastering those concepts.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to reflect on today. The next time you are preparing to share information, whether you're designing a full semester course, building a corporate training deck, or really just putting together a presentation for your weekly team meeting, ask yourself honestly, are you just cooking up one giant pot of palau and forcing everyone to eat it? Or are you going to be a brilliant host, lay out a buffet of options, and host a truly successful lime? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep adopting, and I'll catch you next time.